Thank you for joining in, and thank you for everybody to be here. So we are having a very interesting discussion today, and the panel is also interesting, right? So we'll have very, we can say, diverse views and different views of the adoption and overall how does the ecosystem is working. So digital payments is largely is like in India has been there, right, and sort of leading also. So if we see globally also, we are having a lot of good things in the payments which are coming up. Now, what next is happening? That is a credit part of it. So today with the panel, we'll like to touch upon some of the pointers on that, and we'll try to gain some insights from the market as well, right? So their experiences are pretty wonderful, and I'm sure that will definitely be exciting for all. So I would like to just start with Vinit, you first. Maybe you can share your introduction as well as would like to understand from you like how does the UPI from the businesses across the country is moving, and what is your view on that?
Hey, thanks, Vikrant. And I don't know if I need to introduce myself. It's pretty much written over there. Um, and even when you said, you know, I should talk about UPI and how it is evolving, I'm really wondering what to say because this is really something which has been a game changer for the country. I think the way as a country we have digitized payments, uh, the entire credit for it goes to UPI. And this is even when you travel to some other country, I can with comfort say that 10 years ago when I was used to visit a developed country, and there was always that feeling that यार हमारे यहाँ ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता? Okay. And now when I go, okay, the feeling is अच्छा ये लोग अभी भी वहीं हैं. I think that in my view is how it has changed country. Yes, it has touched the length and breadth of the country, especially with services like UPI 123. It has not only touched a population which is more on the smartphone, but it has also reached a population which is on the feature phone, which is very unique. Back in the years, I used to work in an organization that used to work for payments over USSD. But it was used to cater to Africa market. The way we saw M-Pesa and the other players pick up in those regions was primarily due to the lack of an ability to deliver a card securely. And obviously carrying cash was risky. So back in those, I think Africa as a market was not very high on smartphone penetration. So USSD was a secure option. But then in India, that never picked up because India has always been at a stage which is far, far ahead. The JAM movement that we call, the Jandan accounts, Aadhaar, and the overall mobility penetration. I think these three have been the ground levers, or I'll say the key 3 points, over which then UPI has been able to really, really help. I think that's what I'll say.
So thanks. Maybe Gopal, from your side, would like to understand with the evolving payment system, business models are also evolving, right? So what are your views on how does it going to get evolved, and what will be the future of it?
I think the kind of growth UPI has seen in last few years, obviously it's like almost going to be a decade for that. But these 300 million customers doing 131 billion transactions for the last year, and it is projected probably this year will touch upon 180, 190 plus billion transactions. So I think this growth story is probably one of its kind in the whole world. I mean, this has been a model for the world, rest of the world to follow. No doubt, this is far bigger than Alipay, Union Pay, and all sorts of, even Pice, right? So the second competition is far to catch up. But I think my small take, being part of this fraternity, is that when it comes to doing further, right? So I think this particular base, what you have achieved, it's more of an organic base for the UPI. This will continue growing on its own, thanks to the population and all those other macro factors favorable to India. But I think the two spectrum of of this side and of this baseline is that one is the real India Bharat side, the village side, right? The tier 3 and beyond and the village. That is one area, and the other side is the another extreme of the spectrum, which is the international expansion, right? We are right now live with 8 countries, so before coming to the international part, I think the interesting part is that village part, that rural part, the Bharat part. I think that is where it needs more compassion than skill to look into that problem statement and solve it strategically. What is right now happening, we are very happy with scaling and infinitely scale and this and that. But when we just need to peel the onion and see that how much it has penetrated down there we see a sort of a different learning, a different message, right? So at RUGR, we are trying to solve it. Is not only RUGR, but being part of this ecosystem, I think we have acknowledged this problem statement that let's do something to change that state of affairs by truly enabling them. Obviously, there is a literacy rate out there, there is a digital literacy there. There's a lot of factors which we do not govern, but as India is on a definitely a thriving phase, obviously we expect all these things will fall in place. But what it needs, that marriage between that cooperative segments like cooperative banks, cooperative societies, self-help group and those packs to be part of this true revolution with the big boys right now. Right now, their participation is very, very marginalized, I would say, right? And it is only visible and understandable when you hit the floor and do a bit of a groundwork on that. And we have done that, and we have seen that data, and it is definitely a lot to do. I think that is something we are trying to focus right now. It might be little point solutions for now, but we'll go up there on a comprehensive package and a sort of a managed services end to end. But as of now, we are trying to be the sort of the very, very happy broker of that marriage, potential marriage between this side, India side and the Bharat side of it, right? So that is a gap to me. I think this is an inorganic growth for me for UPI in days to come. This is one aspect of it. The next inorganic growth side is the international expansion, right? So that side also, obviously it is a very complex bit when it comes to 2 central banks coming to the terms, how this cross-border payment will happen. But if we solve this problem the way we have done for 8 countries, and if it really scales, then what it means essentially for India, that we are putting a rail for all these cross-border payments far ahead, a far advanced more system than SWIFT and Prisma being used in some other parts of the world. So that is something very, very exciting, and that is a growth for inorganic growth for UPI as say. Obviously, there are a lot of things to be done. I mean, there's a whole lot of data science and artificial intelligence and machine learning, and deep learning has to play a role in that. But I think the best part of the technology that once you acknowledge that there's a problem statement, there's a sustainable model out there, I think technology falls in place. It's sort of a natural byproduct of the talent and the progression of the world as a whole, as a macro. I think that is something which happens pretty smoothly. But appreciating the model and the deficiency what you have, I think that makes a difference. So from our side, I think we focus on the first part of the problem statement, which is more on the Bharat and India divide. We'll definitely make it completely blurred when it comes to the UPI standpoint, because the technology is so robust, so user-friendly, it doesn't need, right? It's just a matter of one click. So we'll leverage that, and whole other macro factors will also try to influence in another way.
Sure, thanks. Moving on to the Aditya. Aditya, would like to understand from you, and Pice is building on business payments. So how do you see UPI's impact on B2B side altogether?
Sure. So I think business UPI is going to be an industry-defining moment for UPI, because in last couple of years it has seen tremendous success in consumer payments, but that same success has not been replicated in a business transaction when a retailer is paying to a vendor. So I think business UPI is going to play a significant role there, and we also personally think that business UPI requires certain nuances which are not a part of a consumer UPI, right? Like vendor-wise statements, ledgers, accounting statements, receipts, all of that. So I think these nuances will make it more better, more useful for a small retailer to make all his business payments using UPI. Imagine a FMCG store or a large consumer appliance store making payments to its vendor, supplier, tax payments, salaries, everything to UPI. and then there are all kinds of reconciliation and information available on the same app. I think that's going to be a significant game changer, because a small business cannot afford multiple softwares like accounting softwares, billing softwares. If everything can be clubbed into one single app, I think that is going to play a very significant role moving forward. And on the top of that, I think credit on UPI has a lot of use cases when it comes to business UPI. For instances, almost every business in India has a working capital requirement, right? Now imagine if we are able to give this working capital as a credit on UPI, right? And with its ease of access, I think that is going to be a very significant movement in terms of credit or MSME credit in India. Because again, the same thing, that a small business, let's say they have a 1 lakh, 2 lakh credit on UPI available, and they can use the same with the ease of access to pay their vendors and suppliers. And in 90% of the cases, these sole proprietors, they need a 40-45 days credit period, right? Which can be solved significantly. The penetration can be solved. You can do payment against invoices. You can link GST. So all of these things can be built on top of UPI. So I think this is going to be very exciting year in terms of how this entire business UPI plays a role, also how credit plays a role in businesses. So yeah, that's my take.
Sure, thanks. Mohit, so from the perspective of when we talk about UPI as a payment, right? So around 84% of today's digital payments are driven by UPI. How do you see the credit part of it getting into the system, and how it's going to be get in the future?
So what we are seeing is already UPI has crossed the debit card spends. So first we was, and debit card spends now are less than credit card spends. So clearly UPI has taken over debit card spends. What credit card on UPI will do is try and it's a superset of credit card payments, in a sense that credit card transactions are, or the amount spent today is around 1.5 lakh crores a month, and P2M spends on UPI, the other is around 4-5 lakh crores. So how we see UPI on credit card evolving is that UPI credit card will be a equivalent universe of credit card spends in India. So 1.5 lakh crores of spends is what we expect to come in the credit card ecosystem from the UPI transactions. So it's like adding another whole world of credit card payments. But the beauty about it is, one, obviously it is not cannibalizing credit card spends. It's getting new spends in the credit card ecosystem. And the transactions that we see, 70 to 80% transactions are small merchant transactions. So as Aditya was mentioning, B2B payments helps that MSME sectors and all that. UPI as a ecosystem, credit card on UPI, helps the small merchant ecosystems and democratize credit at the other end. Because आप समझो ना कि अभी जब credit card use करते हैं हम लोग, तो there are 8 to 10 lakh unique POS terminals. ये Vinit and me have lived through this. ये हमारा bread and butter होता था. But the QRs are 30 crores, and उसको भी आप, even if you remove the bad QRs, wrongly tagged QRs, there are still 10 crore QRs P2M. I mean, you go to Northeast or you go to even Matunga today in Bombay, Ramashre will not accept a card on POS terminal, they will accept a credit card on QR. So that's the beauty of spends that are coming in, and small merchant का जो acceptance हो रहा है, in a sense that small merchants का relevance इतना बढ़ता जा रहा है. That's what credit card on UPI is doing. It's not only helping consumers, it's helping small merchants, it's getting a whole credit card universe into the ecosystem. That's how big the impact is.
Sure, thanks. So moving on to Vinit, while we're talking about inclusion side, so how do you think the MSMEs are going to get benefited out of the UPI and UPI credit? Briefly, we talked about it on some part of it, but would like to know from the MSME's perspective, what would be their take on the UPI credit side?
Yeah, thanks. And I'll maybe take it on from what Aditya had covered, because he mentions very relevant points. See, what is today the MSME, or let me not say today, maybe yesterday the MSME was more cash driven, right? And because of that, they had a huge issue of getting credit. Okay. What digitization will do is that it makes, it'll leave a digital trail. It'll lead a digital trail of transactions to happen. How would any lender assess a customer for their credit worthiness? A, they either want a secured lending option, which is not a reliable way or not a very long-term way to offer. The other is they look at transaction history. Third is, the other way of lending, risk checks and all. Primarily, the MSMEs do not have any information flowing into any of the credit bureaus. I think what this does is that it builds a significant amount of data which can then be utilized for underwriting. We have been, I think over the years, even when I was part of a bank, we were looking at alternate models, right? You talk to the, the business intelligence unit of any bank. They at any point of time would be speaking to either a telco or some other players in the market saying, insurance companies, utility companies, how do we assess the creditworthiness of a first-time credit user? Right? The problem is not the repeat customer, at least there is a history. The problem is in the first-time credit user. This is exactly what UPI can do. I mean, we recently, I think, a few weeks back, we had this news coming out saying, "Ek pani puri wale ko GST ka notice aa gaya." Right? Now, if the authorities are looking into that data, I'm sure lenders are looking into it in much, much more granular way. And this itself is a strength of what a digital footprint can do. Secondly, I think MSMEs are hungry for credit. MSMEs are hungry for fair credit. There is a lot of players in market today where the interest rates are way up. We saw RBI stopping a few players, even NBFCs, a couple of NBFCs were there, whose licenses were suspended because they were not very transparent in their practice. I think, and this is not a segment of customer to whom the sale happens in a very formal way. Let's understand, when someone is going and offering to them, either they are getting onboarded on their own, which means the MSME is an educated MSME. If that happens, great. But if it's, if it's an assisted sale, or when I say assisted credit assessment, the communication to them is not very clear. The MSME says, yeah, मुझे तो पैसा चाहिए ना, मिल रहा है ना, और वो भी आके बोलता है, हाँ सर ये फॉर्म साइन कर दो, या आप बस आप आधार डालो, OTP डालो, हो जाएगा, right? And they get the credit, not that he's doing, but then the communication is very limited to that, which then boils up when the interest rate gets charged and all. So I think with the digitization, a lot of formal credit lenders will get into it. They are already trying to do it. I'm not that they're not, but it will only help increase there, and overall the digitization and the overall agenda that we're trying to drive, it only helps. It only helps them.
Sure.
Yeah, so I would just like to add 3 things to that. So one is, of course, rightly said that, see, imagine there are 64, 63 million MSMEs in India. Out of that, 63 is sole proprietor, right? All of which are underserved in terms of credit. Now, they start using UPI for making their business payment, and lenders start evaluating that data for underwriting. I think that is going to be a significant change in terms of MSME lending. Apart from that, there are 2 more things. One is, so far expense management has been completely on top of prepaid cards, right? And businesses have been paying unnecessary fee on prepaid card to do expense management, give limits to their employees, team members, sales team, all of that. Now, the entire thing can be done on UPI via the UPI circle. Imagine that as a business, I am giving 5,000, 10,000 limits to all my employees on UPI, and then they can do the relevant business transactions on the top of that at almost no cost, right? So, which itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry in India. So I think that's again going to be a very interesting use case when it comes to business UPI or UPI for MSME. And lastly is this, so far current accounts were not being able to use UPI, because the entire maker checker thing was not there. As of today, NPCI is also building that. So all the current account holders will be able to use UPI to make transactions, approve transactions, so all of that. So I think that's going to be a significant add-on in terms of how payment works in MSME.
Sure, sure. Mohit, just wanted to understand from your insights basically. So while we talk about UPI payments, largely it's a small ticket items, which retail transactions largely, right? But similarly from the credit side also, since the payment is of the small ticket, credit also might be of the small ticket. How do you see UPI credit is building structured and long-term credit opportunities in the future?
The ticket size is smaller. So savings account-based transactions are 400-500 rupees, but credit card transactions are around 1200 rupees to 1300 rupees. But you must understand that credit card is a very different instrument. It's a payment convenience instrument. It's not a credit hungry instrument. तो लोग payment convenience के लिए लेते हैं, revolve करने के लिए नहीं लेते. It's not a lending instrument. So when you revolve or when you don't pay up on time, most likely you are revolving because you've spent above the means. So it is the ticket size or the transaction size is not, there is no correlation between why you revolve on a credit card. However, the fear that will always be there is, क्योंकि अभी if I ask whatever number of people are sitting here कि आप UPI पे कितना spend करते हो और credit card पे कितना spend करते हो, UPI का आंसर किसी के पास नहीं होगा. मेरी वाइफ के पास ही नहीं है तो और किसी के पास कैसे हो सकता है. बट मोस्ट लाइकली योर UPI spends are more than your credit card spends, and that's when the transactions start happening on a credit on UPI ecosystem. You realize अरे ये तो 10-20 हज़ार का spend हो रहा है per month, and that surprise then shocks you to revolve sometimes. However, the probability of revolving in credit will be the same 25-30%. It might come as a shocker for first month, but we've seen over a period of time people start दूसरा क्या है ना, UPI spends are necessity spends. जो small merchant spends हो रहे हैं, you're buying groceries, you're not buying Chroma TV on right now. We've not seen transaction. You're not doing your holiday planning on UPI or credit card, correct? So those are planned purchases जो अभी भी credit card physical ecosystem पे हो रहे हैं. So these are necessity spends, and this is the last thing you don't want to default on, etc. So for example, in our case, 95% of the people are paying on time. That means less than 5% people actually revolve, so they're not credit hungry, right? So this space is pretty safe for these reasons.
Great. So Gopal, while we were talking, you mentioned about the internationalization, right? So from the international perspective, how do you see UPI is evolving, and what opportunities you see for UPI? And given your experience also across the countries, I would like to know from you on that.
I think international expansion of UPI is already on the card. It has already got initial momentum which was supposed to take. It's all going good. We are live in 8. But I think there are 3-4 items which it is getting worked at a tech level, sort of a next gen tech level, like the automatic number plating recognition and so many other stuff, right? Mostly on the machine learning side of it, which will enable a lot of value-added services to be offered when you launch UPI. Understand those countries. I mean to say, barring the African continent. I mean to say, all other economies are largely developed or already matured economy, right? So there are a lot of value-added stuff you have to wrap up with. If you think about launch on that side, but definitely the problem which is getting solved is the cross-border payments. That is anyway tactically solved, right? But now, in order to strategically solve that item, players like SWIFT, all these interbank communities, there has to be a lot of advantages over this UPI over others, which is anyway need to be worked out as a revenue model. But this is not a very easy thing to do when it comes to multiple countries and their central banks, regulatories and all, right? So depending on the leveraging relationship what we have and the technology what you have built and the scale and all, things will go. But my belief that once we make this proposition more compelling and more cogent by adding a lot of value addition services like ANPR, speech recognition, right, predictive analysis, graph analysis, all those stuff, right, then it will make more compelling for those central banks to think. And one day I believe that all this SWIFT will be definitely seriously challenged. This huge markup and all those latency. It is like people who have been living abroad, they know what it means to they go through to transfer money when they need back home people. I think that international expansion will definitely will happen over course of time, but more on India side of it, I think we acknowledge that this is a very efficient, easy and fast way of doing transactions. Then I think as a bank, as a community, banks need to do more TPAP sort of role so that they deepen their merchant base, because they have the closest to the ecosystem, right? They are nearest to the customers. That is something, an area of improvement I see. And apart from that, all these incentivizing platform, your rewards, loyalty and all, whatever you incur on credit card transactions, right? I know it's small ticket size, but still you got to push the clients with this right incentivizing platform. I'm sure that it will be much more formidable proposition, at least for not for the big purchase what Vinit was telling, but I think it will make more sense for small ticket size customers to fall back on UPI than any other mode of payments. When I talk about the credit line on UPI, I think that future also quite prospect. I know people have a apprehension that it should not cannibalize my other revenue stream, at least the credit card, because it has been a form factor for convenience for quite some time. But I might believe it will not cannibalize, but it has to run for a while. We need to review the P&L and the other stuff and all as a whole, macro level. It's all about left pocket and right pocket. Which pocket you prefer, that depends on what vision you carry at the end of the day. But I think it will definitely pick up.
Yeah. Thanks. Moving on to just continuing this thought, maybe Aditya, from the cross-border perspective, how do you see we'll be able to build up something cost-effective, right? One is time, which Gopal rightly mentioned. Maybe tracking is another pain for cross-border transaction, and cost-effectiveness is the one more factor of it. So, what are your views on that part?
So I think settlement time and cost effectiveness are two of the most key factors when it comes to cross-border payments, right? How much time it is taking and how much cost it is taking, right, to transfer funds overseas. And I think UPI is already solving that. Today, this is already live with Singapore. You can transfer up to $1,000 Singaporean dollars to anybody in Singapore directly via UPI. The settlement is instant, and currently there is no cost to it. NPCI might come with some commercials around it in the future. Maybe right now for adoption, it's free of cost. But how amazing this is, right? That right now I can transfer somebody in Singapore using NowPay up to $1,000 instantly, and they'll receive it instantly. And there's something earlier would have taken more than 2-3 working days, right? If you are, as an Indian, if you are studying in France or you are traveling to France as a tourist, there you can make payments using your UPI to any POS terminal or a QR code which is there. So I think the NPCI is already taking significant steps, and they are very aware of the fact that it has to be instant and it has to be very cost effective. So far, I think some NPCI have launched this in some 7-8 countries, and I think this is going to grow significantly. And it's going to have a huge impact. Imagine a son who's in US wants to transfer money to his mother in India. Today, it's a big hassle, right? It involves a lot of cost. It's not real time. It's not convenient, right? And for the mother in India to access that money, she might have to go to some bank or go to some third party and withdraw that fund, right? But if this could have been done using UPI instantly, but at a low cost, I think this is going to be very significant. Vice versa, let's say a daughter is studying in US and the father wants to transfer monthly expenses. I think that, again, a very important use case. So I think when it comes to UPI rails, the whole entire infrastructure of UPI allows it to be cost effective and instant, right? So that's the inherent nature of the entire infrastructure, and it's going to play a very significant role. Very exciting to see that how it turns out in the years ahead. But I think, yeah, it's already started happening.
Sure, thanks. So Vinit, one part I would like to touch upon from the perspective, like Gen AI is everywhere, right? I mean, wherever you talk about, you can't miss the point which is there, it is involved, right? Not on the superficial level, but if we talk about AI, it's definitely it's making an impact, a positive impact as well. I mean, the reconciliation process is basically we are talking to somebody that how it got solved because of AI, and even the apt use of AI in customer support, right? So, how this amalgamation of UPI and AI you think will be helpful for the ecosystem altogether?
Oh, I mean, it it is definitely a game changer, right? And if you think of it, what is the core strength of AI? The core strength of AI that is A, it can handle large data sets. B, it is 24/7, okay, and it is scalable, right? And it is learning on its own. Those are three key aspects of it. What we also need to remember is there is always going to be a human angle to it also, right? Specifically to credit, since we are talking about credit, decisioning, whether it is credit decisioning or even for that matter fraud or transaction monitoring. These are very strong use cases where an AI can take decisions. However, when it comes to those edge cases, you always need the human element to come in. And if that feedback loop is completed, wherein the human correctly tells, hey, in this scenario, these are the true factors that additionally need to be considered before taking a decisioning, maybe next time the AI will be able to take a better decision. Right? So there is always, I definitely see a need for a balance. But yes, many operational tasks which today were dependent on some systems and human can be taken care by AI. The good part is, I'll say even transaction monitoring and all, it was already digitized in the past. I mean, any organization would not get into data sets, right? They would look at flags. There were triggers, there were alerts that were coming. Now AI can take decisions also when taught properly. It is the human who has to teach. It is the human who has to define those logics. The AI will do. Okay? But you don't expect the AI to generate new logics. Right? It can recommend but not generate. Yeah.
No, true. True. Moving on, Mohit, would like to understand from you on the certain aspect of the CBDC, which is E2P, which is coming in, and it's merging with UPI. What are the chances? How does it will go? How much it will fly? Any of your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
From the CBDC side.
Acha, CBDC side.
Yeah.
So, that still is evolving, right?
Yeah, it's evolving. Yeah.
Problem is that once you merge a player with each other, when you've seen success on the other side, right? So, I think it will still take time. While some players are toying with that idea, with MobiKwik and a couple of other players went live. But I think till the time success is proven, there is trust built into it. It will still take time to evolve and merge with a entity like UPI. There is still time for that.
Sure.
I think just one point, this digital rupee was launched, right? It already got launched in November 22. So it hit 1 million transactions also in a day, and then it all of a sudden fell. So I think this space, this CBDC, it's definitely, it gives a democratizing platform to make it a global currency. But when it comes to adoption to Indian ecosystem, I think it will be much more faster than taking to the international. That is definitely something I think NPCI and RBI both are contemplating to roll it out as fast as possible, or make this digital rupee even more popular, make it a more compelling proposition. But stretching on that AI side, I think one aspect I would like to mention which is more relevant from the village side, the Bharat side of it. Like, majority of Indians living in the village still do not have the threshold literacy, both digital and otherwise. The traditional educational competence is definitely poor. So for them, it's only the mother tongue which matters, right? And India is very, very diverse in terms of culture, and also, I think that platform Bhashini, which is NPCI's endeavor, that is something, to me, my estimate, is going to change a lot of it is going to be truly inclusive movement from API standpoint. If we really use our LLM properly with the AI and machine learning and all, and use this Bhashani, I think that will give a huge organic growth to the existing UPI stack. We're really looking forward to it because we are more into the Bharat side of it, trying to solve some of the problems strategically and tactically. But I think Bhashani will definitely help people like us to truly uplift when it comes to UPI, and we're really looking forward to it. So that is one of the immediate dividends we expect machine learning should give it to us.
Sure. Yep. Thanks for that. Aditya would like to take this up with you from the perspective of like UPI Lite, the way it has simplified the small transaction payments, and from that perspective. So, how do you see its uptake on the business side as well, from the merchant side probably, and how do you think it will grow further with some of the part? Maybe Vinit, I'll pick up your views also because there is offline payments which are involved into it. So, would pass on to him also as well.
Sure, sure. So I think UPI Lite is again a very significant feature, right? So if you had seen Nalin Bansal's session yesterday, along with business UPI Lite and giving UPI access to tier 3, tier 4 is one of the key focus of NPCI for the coming year. That being said, there are some 350 million feature phones or feature phone users in India who are currently not able to use UPI to its full power, right? So with offline UPI and UPI Lite, it's going to be very significant, wherein somebody in a tier 3, tier 4 city will be able to make a small payment via the UPI while buying vegetables or groceries or maybe at a fuel station. And I think that's where the next wave of transactional volume is going to come from. And then once they are onboarded on UPI, of course, we can think about getting these people onboarded on credit and so on and so forth. When it comes to, if I have to talk about from a merchant point of view, I think the same problem that in a tier 3, tier 4 city, the adoption is not that significant as what we see in metros or tier 1 cities. Now imagine if with UPI Lite, small merchants in a small town are able to accept payments via UPI up to 2,000 rupees. So the limit is up to 2,000 right now. I'm hoping that NPCI has significant plans to increase the limit as this grows. Even up to 5,000, I think it makes a significant sense and increases the acceptance on a merchant point of view. And then that being said, I think I met someone and they were building for credit for blue collar workers, right? And cab drivers. Now, when you talk about these people, see, right now they're not formally onboarded on credit. They don't get access to credit cards, right? Now, imagine if we are able to give them small credit lines of 5,000, 10,000 on UPI, right? And then they can make the payment wherein there's no POS machine. But QR codes are everywhere today. As you know, rightly mentioned, there are 30 crore merchant QR code distributors across India, which is significantly higher than POS machines. So this way we'll be able to also onboard these people on a formal credit ecosystem, and they'll be able to leverage the benefits of credit, enjoy the 40-45 days period, make their expenses. So I think that the entire feature combined, starting with UPI Lite, I think it's very significant, and it's gonna make a significant sense in the months to come or the years to come. In all sort, and also from a overall development of the country, right? That so far, imagine, I come from a very small village in Rajasthan, and I know that the penetration of UPI is not there, and still there's just one bank with one ATM, and the ATM is always out of cash, right? So, and every time I'm there, I have to travel to a different village nearby, which has private ATMs, and there is always some cash available there. The entire requirement will go away, right? So these women in villages who are working in Manrega or other government subsidized facilities, I think this is going to make a significant improvement in their life, wherein now this entire money is transferred to their bank account and they can utilize it via UPI Lite, make these payments via feature phones, buy the basic necessities, medicines, groceries, vegetables. So that is going to be a significant step for them. And another point is that all these private ATMs which I'm talking about, which are usually available in small villages, there's a charge on that, right? And a 25 rupees charge for a lady working in a rural area whose monthly income is around 5,000, it's significant, right? She doesn't want to pay that, right? So I think this is going to be very interesting.
Sure, thanks. So just continuing that, Vinit, from the perspective of UPI Lite X, which is there, right, which is for the offline one. So what are your views about that how it's going to help?
First, a light-hearted comment. Okay. Coming from Geo, how do you expect me to accept that there is a need for an offline? I mean, from a connectivity perspective, we are all there, right? But yeah, I think yes, it will help. And in fact, we, to the point that was being made regarding getting into the tier 3, tier 4 and beyond, I think Jio as an organization is also trying to make with the, see, we have handsets like the Jio phone and the Jio Bharat phone. We've recently announced a feature called the Jio Sound Pay, which enables merchant acceptance on the phone itself. You can, as an individual, you can make even payments using that handset. I'm not referring to the UPI 123 feature. That has been there always. But I'm referring to a feature which is you can scan and pay using the handset. UPI Lite definitely helps. It also eases, it reduces the friction in transaction also. Right? I think that's the best part of a small ticket transaction. You go to any large format retailer, especially QSRs. QSRs treat, they're very particular about queuing. And they measure the time taken in every step, right from the order getting initiated to the order getting completed, to the payment getting initiated, to the payment successful notification coming in, and then further. Typically in UPI, if there is a friction of entering a PIN, it only increases this period by 10 to 12 seconds. Now, a store that has 1,000 to 1,500 transactions in a day, 10 to 12 seconds is a lot of time. And for a large format retailer, I have had the privilege of being on the vendor side for one of the large QSR chains, where they were so particular about transaction time, because their overall metric of operation was, we had to do the entire process of the customer starting the order to the invoice getting printed in less than 1 minute. And if it has to be less than 1 minute, which means the payment confirmation also is part of it. So yeah, it does help. It does.
Definitely. And thank you for everyone for your insights and the deep conversation on this. So if there are any questions from the audience, would like to pick it up. Yeah, please.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to panel for excellent insights on UPI Lite and UPI credit. I think that the discussion between UPI credit and credit card already been covered a lot. My question is, MDR on transaction is a big source of income to the credit card companies, and definitely the MDR on UPI is going to be lot less. And it can be made lot less because government can just enforce it. So how do you see this threat for the credit card companies? So any comments on that? Thank you.
I won't think there will be any comments on that, because that is a pretty different part of discussion altogether.
I think one comment I can probably make, this is a bit of a stretch maybe. I think lesser MDR for UPI still have the economy of scale advantage, right, for the small ticket size transaction. So that overall, how it obviously, high ticket size wise, high MDR for the credit card and the low amount, but if you have a little bit of more on the economy of scale push, then still it can be probably a match proposition, but wait and watch.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hi. How do you like the idea of integrating credit UPI with token? Because token also is a good platform for MSME to get a loan. So can in the future we see any possibility credit line on UPI can be integrated with OCEN. So the borrower also will get many lenders to choose from.
I will take this. So, see, UPI, credit on UPI itself is a complete product, right? So, and it's more from how the credit is being used. OCEN can play the part of how this credit is being disbursed. So, how the underwriting is getting done and what are the lenders available on the platform. So, these are two different sides, right? So, eventually, if both the entities wants to combine it, of course, the combination can be there because they are both playing different roles, right? One is playing the role of underwriting and disbursement, and the other is playing the role of the payment, the utilization of credit, right? So both are playing different roles, and definitely if both the entities want, it can be done and it can play some a good significant role in the entire picture. But otherwise also both the products are, complete in its own.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you panel for the all the answers and the insights on the knowledge here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. We would love to appreciate and acknowledge your presence with presenting a moment to do. Requesting Vikrant sir to kindly do the honors for us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, requesting you to kindly give a round of applause for all our panelists, our speakers here, representing the memento, and thanking all of them for their precious time.